Sup everyone. As you guys can see, we have a little different camera angle going on here because as per the canonical story, we need to be in this angle for it to be most relevant to the character. All right, so she has to be looking down on us. That's just how it is. It's a POV video. Anyways, we gotta talk about Yelan because in this video I'm gonna go over everything that I've noticed about this character, whether she is good, bad. There are pros and cons with every character. Just because I mentioned a couple cons later on in this video, don't let this influence you in thinking that she's not an amazing character. Let's just get this out of the way from the very beginning. She is a superb character. She raises the damage ceilings of all teams by a maximum of 50% for well, 1 second, but still 50%. And as the damage ramps up, you can go through all these increments of damage increase. So for characters that stay on the field for at least 8 seconds, maybe 10 seconds plus, you're gonna find great value. And for the most part, a lot of hyper carry teams could benefit from this. So like you're just going from anyone who stays on the field, from Eula to Zhao to Yoimiya to Ito, like anybody who stays on the field can benefit from this. Now, of course, there are characters that benefit more because there are going to be synergistic optimizations to be paired with Yelan. But that being said, from a bare bones standpoint, very surface level, she is an amazing character. We'll go into a little more about whether she is deserving of, let's say, the same tier as Kazuha, Bennett, Xingqiu, and whatnot. But let's just talk about her kit. Because while most types of characters that have insanely great rewards, which in her case being 50% damage boost, you would think they would be high risk. But for the most part, Yelan's kit does not involve many risks. Yelan has somehow found herself a way to have moderate risk and high rewards. This is something that is odd. As for her burst, you have a consistent amount of time to take advantage of the damage ramping buff with little to no downside. You literally just have to have a character on field dealing damage and you're taking advantage of it. So there's not like some sort of insane prerequisite or conditions into activating this. The buff also transfer between each of your unit who is on field, but I'm not going to get into detail here. As to the caveats of their burst, I'm going to maybe leave that for another video, or you guys likely already know, or else this video is going to take too long. All right, the character right now has great synergies with many teams due to her burst because, like I mentioned earlier, all teams need to do damage and a damage ramping buff is welcomed in all team scenarios, which is 100% of the teams. That coupled with her hydro element being arguably the most versatile in the game, all of this in combination makes Yelan a good and likely sought after unit to pick up. But make no mistakes, Yelan is by no means an easy unit to synergize with. This is the first point that I have to get you guys to understand is, yes, she can be slotted into many teams, but each one of those teams will have to adapt to Yelan's unique playstyle. She's not going to go into a team and she just slot in like a Kazuha running Viridescence. You just press a button and you swirl the element. No. Due to Yelan and the way she works and her elemental skill and burst skill, it's very important on how you cycle through her skill rotations and alongside her team. Like who uses their burst first, who uses their burst second becomes very important with Yelan because every second that's ticking by, if you're not fully utilizing the window of her burst skill ramping buff, it could go to waste. And I guarantee you guys, you will have many ways to find little things about when to use a little skill or when to switch to another character to maximize her damage potential, because there are instances where characters that have one-shot burst skills can really take advantage of that ramping buff. For example, someone like Eula, someone like Raiden Shogun, they can both benefit greatly from that ramping buff, and Eula could even end her burst early to allow for the last couple seconds of that ramping, which means we're getting closer and closer to that 50% damage buff to be utilized by someone else. So on screen here, you guys can see I kind of put together this team that has Eula and Raiden Shogun, which already is a team that exists, and I also have Bennett in here, so just a lot of damage that's kind of scaling into both Eula and Raiden. I'm trying to use the last bit of burst to facilitate Raiden's burst as opposed to Eula, whereas Eula was taking advantage of the ramping up from seconds like 6 all the way to seconds 11. So that's about like 4 or 5 seconds there, where Eula Eula was taking advantage of that and finally finishing it off with Raiden Shogun. And that's just one example of many, and as you guys will continue to see in this video, that there are so many teams that could work with it, and teams that previously didn't seem to exist are now popping into the spotlight because of Yelan. One of the main problems though with this is a lot of the times these characters do end up relying on their burst skills, so energy regen is going to be a problem. And for people running a C0 Yelan, you're going to probably rely on a weapon that has energy regen as the substat, or else you're going to have to be running a C1 Yelan, which gives her 2 charge skills, essentially giving her 8 particles per usage there, and it cycles through really fast with almost no downtime. For people wondering though, because I know you guys are thinking, what about Hu Tao, what about Yoimiya, what about these traditional units that Xingqiu was working with? A lot of people picking up Yelan are not doing so in hopes that she makes them new teams. It's just they're picking up Yelan as an alternative, or maybe just replace Xingqiu in some team options. In fact, they really wish that she would outperform Xingqiu in many of these teams. Although I can't say that she has worked very well with all of Xingqiu's team options. There are scenarios where she took what Xingqiu was able to do and just made it much better. So one of the case, which throughout my testing, was that Yoimiya is going to be the #1 benefactor to Yelan's release, because everything about Yoimiya just flows together in Yelan's kit. It's flawless, with Yelan using her burst elemental skill, swapping over to Bennett, and then eventually Yoimiya. It just starts ramping up. Or if you don't want to run Bennett, there are variations where I have ran Yunjin instead with double Geo, which was indeed the most successful team I have demonstrated. And the Yoimiya on screen here isn't really fully built and optimized for damage, but still is just doing an excessive amount of damage. I think this really takes Yoimiya and raises her to the level of at least where Hu Tao has been at for a little while. Yoimiya has always not only lacked a consistent artifact option, but as well as a support that could be said to cater towards her as opposed to any other unit. And I think Yelan, while fitting many roles, this is one of the ones that she fits in the best. I think all of you should have a question on your mind by now is, well, okay, Walrus, you've been talking about how good she is. You did mention some of her flaws as well, but overall, where does she sit? Is she worthy of that top tier character evaluation? I don't mean to throw the S tier around too casually, because to me, an S tier character not only needs to carry their own weight, they also need to carry the weight of their teammates. They need to make other units shine better. In fact, sometimes shine even brighter than themselves. And when they can do that for many different units while also being self-sufficient, that is a good character, and also being incredibly difficult to replace or damn near impossible due to how special they are in what they do. With all that said, I do think Yelan indeed deserves that S tier spot, because the way she ramps up damage right now, there's just no other character that kind of does it in the way that she does. And while yes, there are flat buffing characters in the game such as Bennett, which gives you an instance of buffing, Yelan's buffing doesn't restrict you to a specific area. Yelan's buffing is very flexible and it transfers through different characters, and due to that flexibility, it opens up more usage outside of certain restrictive teams. She herself does a really good amount of damage, and there are free to play and low cost options to mitigate some of her energy cost issues. While C1, C2 are both amazing constellations, they're by no means a must get to make her feel comfortable. She is very comfortable at C0 with free to play options, and artifact sets already exist in the game where people can pair to buff her up to the teeth. Alright, overall, I think this character is amazing. I really hope HoYoverse takes this as great precedence into releasing more characters like Yelan that actually provide something unique through their kit and not just a replaceable, overworked DPS option. Now, finally, before we end, although I did give her high praise, she's by no means a character that I think you guys should be going after. She is a bit better than Shinhe, but think of it in a way that she's a more versatile pile Shenhe for more units. With Kazuha still in the game, he is very easy to use. He doesn't have as many limitations or restrictions for synergies. It's so simple. It's the press of one button and it's done, right? So of course, when it comes to efficiency and ease of use, Kazuha still has her beat. I mean, Kazuha has everyone in the game beat. I do think Yelan is sitting comfortably in S tier, maybe a little lower on the S tier ranking, but nonetheless S tier. Don't sweat about it. I do think most people can wait for her on her rerun. You guys should be saving for Kazuha. You guys probably should be saving for the Sumeru Dendro Archon. Don't want to end up burning all your resources on a character that is going to be coming back in the near future. With that said, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys got good luck summoning for this character, or you guys are successfully saving up your Primo Gems. Until next time though, I urge you all to stay safe and peace.